that eviscerate early, because you're going to want those combo points to be there. So as long as you've used your, what's it called again, your combo point generator ability.
Oh, the combo points relics sort of add-on.
No,
Yeah,
I mean, what ability do you use to actually generate your combo points?
Oh, it's just the weapons, the offhand and the main hand, and when they hit, they will generate combo points. When it gets to 5, then I'll either hit eviscerate
Isn't it like
or
Sinister Strike or something like that? That's what generates your combo points.
yeah. I'm just wondering whether if I've got a lot of keystrokes sort of stacked up there on the keyboard, and it hits 5 combo points, is it going to miss the eviscerate?
No, it's not, pal. You can set that when you put a button down, it works, or you can set when you let go of a button, which is, I find, really handy. It's in case you click the wrong button, you still haven't activated a cooldown or something, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah.
That can be set using just the key bindings that Blizzard have in game, which is pretty nice.
Okay, so if I just have a quick look, if we have a quick look at some of my my binds here, I wouldn't necessarily suggest having your buttons in the same format as mine because it's very blocky and it's something I wouldn't have gone into in the past, but it's just something that I've migrated into. And the reason I've got it like that is probably because of my transition to the mouse as well, and just a few other things. I like to have the buttons on the right hand side which mimic the buttons on my mouse. When you've got like 12 buttons on a mouse, it really helps to have that visual reference, so I can see what my mouse is doing there at a glance if I forget. And then just along the bottom I've got my primary rotation, and they're very easy keybinds to use, very close to WAS and D, so 1, 2, 3, 4 and R. They're very easy to reach for me, so that's why I have those there. And then secondary rotation, just that just extends out from there, so I'm looking at sort of F, Q, E, T, G, C and V. So really I would suggest starting with WAS and D and working your way outwards, and if you want to just get into key binding, I'd start with just a basic few, like literally just using 1, 2, 3, 4 and maybe R or something like that as a starting point. And then you can extend out with modifiers. As you can see here, I've got alt modifiers, and Tyree, I will show you how to do that later if you can't work out how to set these alt and shift modifiers. So generally speaking, I use alt for my defensive cooldowns, so I've got alt 1 for last stand, alt 2 shield wall, etc. Controls I'm using for my DPS cooldowns. This is a tanking setup, by the way, for those of you not familiar with warrior abilities. And then on shift, I usually just slap my interrupt on shift 1, just and I know where that is, and then I've got a few AoE type abilities on shift 2, 3 and 4. I've got space for macros as well, but I mean, as you can see by this, I've used quite an extensive array of keybinds, so don't be overwhelmed by that. This is just something that you can transition into, and as I say, if you don't want to present yourself with all this information in front of you, you don't have to. If you're good at remembering stuff, then you'll just be able to know without the visual cue. It's just odd things, like sometimes I forget where I've put things that I might change around.
Yeah, that happens with age, I find.
Yeah, basically. I've got really bad recently.
Can I give my... I know I haven't got any pictures and whatnot, but can I give my sort of aim as... Because I'm really quite light on macros and add-ons and stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
I find it that your game can actually play quite better, because recount and lots of things like that. They all stack up, and you wonder why you got this little bit of lag, and often it's because of the things like that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you're finding that that's a problem, I mean, recount isn't an essential one, so it can be removed. But I do think that add-ons such as weak auras are very, very useful. And as long as they're not too taxing and you don't have too many of them, then it shouldn't be too much of an issue.
I would agree. I find that a lot of things like Deadly Boss Mods things are very nice to start with, but after you do the raids for a while, you should be able to switch them off. You know, you should learn it by heart almost. You know, with practice.
Yeah, that's because these fights are just very repetitive. I mean, the same thing happens over and over again. There are some random events that occur that you do have to be on the ball and watch out for things like debuffs and whatever. But is there an add-on that you can get that allows you to move like your, I don't know, your debuff bar around or something? So
you can get a bar that does your debuffs, and it's completely movable. I know Bartender in particular is pretty nice for everything, because it quite literally it numbers every section and moves it. And I think there's a lot of similar ones that do exactly the same thing. I use decursive myself. I like that. It's very handy.
is that the thing where you get like a grid come up and then
Yeah, you get a bunch of green squares, and only if you can dispel it, it's set to a certain color, you know, and so you don't worry about, oh, someone's taking damage, can't hit. And also, you don't need a keybind on a button, because it's quite literally, as a druid, I can curse, poisons, and magic. So it's like shift, alt, and control, and click on the person in various combinations, and that will either it'll dispel any of them, if that makes sense. But it's actually easier than that these days, because they're all bound on one.
They're all the same
button.
Yeah.
But I believe they also have CC on it, so you can also do like Cyclo.
Yeah, they
and
do.
Tangling Roots.
I've seen that. Yeah,
it's different for different classes, you know.
So for mages, you can have it'll cover things like polymorph
decurse.
and decurse. Yeah. I don't know. You might be able to take it a step further with something like spell steal if there's something available to steal. On like an MC target or something. But yeah, this is just what I've got up now on the screen. It's just an example of some of the weak auras that I use. At the top there, these are just some icons that I just pulled out from the from various boss mechanics. Now, it's unlikely all a load will pop up together, because there's only usually a few key ones in each fight, but I'm just putting them up there as an example. I think these all come out from the Shah fight. Looks like it, yeah. So you can just see there in front of you when you've got a particular buff, or if you've got a particular debuff, and there's a timer on it as well. I don't know if you can see there's like a shadow which will move down when it's running out. I've got 3 auras around my character now. This is for what I use for like external cooldowns. I've just really wanted something to show up when a healer puts a cooldown on me, so that I know straight away without having to look through a load of buffs that I've got. So like the 3 white triangle bits there, that's a pain suppression. The pink is the Hand of Sacrifice, and the orange one is the Iron Bark. Now, I usually get all 3 happen together, because I'll ask for a healer cooldown, and then some other healers will panic, and then I'll end up with 3 on me at once, and it's a complete waste. But if you can coordinate external cooldowns and you've got this on you, it makes life so much easier. You know whether you need to use a strong cooldown yourself, or whether you're covered because a healer's already got you. Sometimes you'll get an external cooldown without asking for one, so it's really helpful to know when that's going to happen. So I find weak auras really good for showing up things like procs or any external events that are happening. Does anyone else use them for that sort of thing?
I have a similar one. I'm sure it's for all classes, but I'm not 100% now. It's called Shock and Awe. And it started off as enhancement shaman, you know, like they get procs for instant light bulbs and stuff, and a lot of those are all procs for wind fury, and people wouldn't realize, so they wouldn't max out the DPS. It was quite hard to do.
Yeah.
And I believe they've expanded that to all classes now, like all specs too. So they have a similar format that you kind of play around with. You move the colors, what you want. It's quite customizable in that sense, and you can like I got a, let me see, on my shaman I've got it for all specs, and I think I've got about 7 different things that pop up. You know, enhancement shaman's very proc heavy. But I've also got a similar thing on a Shadow Priest and Boomkin when you have certain, you know, certain buffs, certain procs. It's really handy. It makes it playing very easy. So have a look at that, I would say.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it's an alternative to the one you're suggesting, you know. Some people like blue, some people like green, you know.
Yeah, I've made a list of add-ons that I'm going to add to as people make suggestions. So I'll put that on there. What was it called again?
Shock and Awe. But I'll double check and make sure it's still functional and not out of date. Otherwise, it's kind of useless. But because I haven't played my shaman in a while, but it still works as far as I know.
Yeah, I guess it depends really whether you want sort of something that allows you full customization, or whether you want something pre-built that's just going to work for you and you can tweak a few settings just to get it right. There are lots of stuff out there for you to use. The shot you're seeing now, this is just how I use my weak auras for general procs and cooldowns, for example. So I've got shield block active. It's just got a timer on it there, so I can see in front of me without actually having to look at the top of the screen where it defaults. Or if you look above my my unit frame, I've actually got them in timer form there. I just set that on as an example so that you can see that LVUI can do that, but I don't tend to look at those, to be honest. I much prefer like an icon, as you can see there, much more visual for me. Procs Fortitude on the right, that's basically my metagem proc, and that will give me some damage reduction whilst that's active. It's not very easy to, well, it is, I suppose. You can see on the character there's like a shield around him, and there's a sound effect associated with it. If you haven't noticed either of those, then you've got the icon there, which I find quite useful. I can sort of weave my cooldowns around it as needed. And the same with sort of knowing how long my shield block's got left, for example, because I know what I'm going to need to pop next. I'm not going to pop too much at once. Things like that are quite useful for a tank. And if you look at my my actual abilities, you can see that the revenge is proccing there. I just use the default flash for that because I've got my buttons in my face anyway. I recognise that as a proc of hold the line. But I mean, you can, if you get rid of your buttons, you could set up a weak aura to show that as well if you wanted to. For things like riposte, I don't really care when that's active. It's just one of those things that I'm not really that bothered about, so I don't have anything specific for that.
I think a good important thing to say is that healer, DPS, tank, you all play very differently, so you need quite a different array of add-ons.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to be covering each of the different roles in coming weeks.
That's cool.
Yeah, because it is completely different. Last week I showed an example of like some of my mages UI, and the fact that you don't really need the raid frames in your face because they're not really that important. But as a healer, you kind of need the raid frames. So